Welcome to a live episode of Fumblegate on YouTube for January the 9th, 2020. You wouldn't know it's January as warm as it is outside in Cincinnati. As warm as apparently
70s.
it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be this weekend. It's nuts. I'm Jason Grefer. This is former Cincinnati Bengal Adam Kieft. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom of your screen, so give us a follow on the Twitter. Also, throw us a like on the Facebook, facebook.com/Fumblegate, FumblegatePodcast@gmail.com, and use hashtag Fumblegate whenever you see something funny or terrible that happens in the world of football, because why not?
Particularly kickers.
Yeah, and we do have a kicker of the week this week.
Yeah, we found one.
Yeah,
bowl games came through this week.
Bowl games did come through, so we do have that. We will also discuss a little bit a national championship game that might be getting overlooked, and a big chance at history for that one. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, and of course, the back half of the show is going to be entirely dedicated to the FBS national championship between Clemson and LSU. We'll break that down, a few different angles to look for, things to keep an eye on. And we'll also, of course, at the end of the show, we'll give you our picks as to who wins the national championship. But first, it's all about the NFL, and we're just going to jump right into it here and just focus on this week's set of games. And let's start with the first one up, the divisional round. Minnesota, after a surprising result, beating New Orleans in the Superdome, which not a lot of people saw coming. I know we didn't see it coming. We're not the only ones. But
That's shocking.
But Minnesota kind of had a similar formula as to what Tennessee did against New England. Ride your running back, and have your quarterback basically just not lose it for you. And
manage the game.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins played like Kirk Cousins, not Kurt Cousins. And so it was good enough. Whether or not there was offensive pass interference on the touchdown of Kyle Rudolph, that's to be debated.
Oh, it's so stupid. For the record, there's the rule, because it's subjective, is there's very large gray area in offensive and defensive pass interference, and we've seen now. I want to say the NFL officials have screwed up pass interference all season anyway, because even with the review process, which is supposed to make pass interferences, flawless, or we can go back and look at it and see if there's pass interference because of the Saints game last season. They had this rule to be able to review pass interference, but the problem is it's still so subjective. Like, could you have called offensive pass interference on that play? Absolutely, because he uses his arm to separate. But it's how you see it, and was that enough to call pass interference, and so on and so forth. And it's the NFL created this rule to try and allow it in real time. It wasn't called, so they didn't change it after replay, and I don't think they should have. But the NFL's got to figure out something. The replay system was supposed to help with pass interference. I don't feel like it helped at all.
No.
If anything, it made you more frustrated, because now it's not only missed as a flag initially, but they're going to review and stuff that's far, far more obvious than that one. Particularly, like if you look at the Saints against the 49ers in the last week of the regular season, where the play before the fourth down play, where they were stopped just short, the linebacker essentially was tackling the tight end, didn't even go to review. So like the argument isn't necessarily against that specific play. I think the replay review needs to be changed. Either they need to get rid of it altogether, or there has to be a clearly defined set of standards, and they got to be better at it, because right now it just frustrates fans to see not called the first time, and then upon review you're like, oh yeah, that'll get called pass interference, and then it doesn't get changed. So it really, something needs to happen with that system, because as a fan it's frustrating to watch.
Well, this is a 1-year experimental thing, so I guess at the end, once the Super Bowl concludes in a few weeks, they'll take stock and see whether it is something they want to continue with as is, tweak it, or possibly just get rid of it. I'm in favor of just getting rid of it altogether, because that play that happened last year with the Rams and the Saints was such an outlier. It was such a badly miscalled. There's an overreaction at that point, and I get it, because it's a call that should not have been made, or should have been made. I'm sorry, it was badly missed. But that's also the part of sports in general. It's the human element. We constantly try and perfect an imperfect game because it's played by human beings. It's never going to be perfect. No sport is. And that's why you keep constantly seeing the debate in Major League Baseball. Should we use robotics to call balls and strikes because the umpires don't have consistency in the strike zone? Well, it's all subjective because it's human nature. Like I said, we constantly try to perfect imperfect things or the other way, we would try and perfect these things, but we're doing with imperfect, beings to do it.
Humans are flawed, and
exactly,
and that's part of it.
That's part of the game.
It's always been part of the game, and if it weren't for social media and replays and the ability to instantly put it out and look at it from 10 different angles and the overhead view and the 3D view and all that crap, like stuff like that gets missed all the time, and it's been missed throughout history. And trying to turn it into purely, like you mentioned, like, should we have, a computer called balls and strikes? In fact, there's a league, I believe it's
one of the minor leagues.
Minor leagues is doing that, where essentially the umpire stands out there for show, essentially.
You have a situation like we talked about last week with the fumble, non-fumble in the Ohio State Clemson game.
Yeah.
And they go to replay to look at it, but then you see and you see people are raging because they see the slow-mo replay breaking down from one specific angle, showing what it showed, but the officials don't have access to that. So it further ticks people off that how could the officials not get this right? Well, the officials don't have access to that.
They didn't see the same thing you saw in super slow mo and
they
all that.
They
don't
have
it
60 frames per second. They have to watch it in real time as it happened. To try to make that determination. So anyway, Minnesota is the benefactor of it. They win. They're on to San Francisco now to take on the 49ers. Saturday afternoon kickoff, so it'll be bright sunshine out at Levi Stadium for the entirety of this ball game. I don't know weather's supposed to be a factor really at any of the games as far as poor weather goes. We know in Green Bay it's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold, but it's not supposed to be actively snowing.
Just kind of a bummer.
Game. Yeah, it's way more fun. The ambiance of the big fat snowflakes falling in Lambeau is a lot more fun to watch.
Well, we got Minnesota here heading out west. Obviously, a really nice win to be able to, limit New Orleans offensively, and then to do enough to get it done defensively. Of course, New Orleans, if you think about it, if Will Lutz doesn't miss the field goal going into halftime, then we're not even talking about an overtime situation.
Yeah, could have been the case.
Just so fans know, watching right now, Will Lutz, not the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of
the
week.
No, he's not.
Under consideration, but he is not the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the week. So yeah, now it's Minnesota's turn to try and do it again as the 6th seed, and 6 seeds obviously don't do well in divisional games, and they're going to try and right the ship out in San Francisco, who got a week to get healthy and get themselves sharp for this game here. This is an interesting one. You look at San Francisco. Obviously, we've had the talk here about can you trust Jimmy G? Can you trust Jimmy G? How much do you like him down the stretch, and so on and so forth. And to a large extent, Jimmy G's been pretty good. He's had some games that are like, maybe not so much.
Well, he's still coming back from a pretty serious injury last year, and at times he looks like he's struggling with it, and at times he looks like he's the guy for the job. Sometimes he's a game manager, and sometimes he has the ability to make big plays, and it'll really be, in my opinion, this game comes down to whether or not he's the game manager or he's the big play guy, and it's the same thing with Kirk Cousins. I think between the two of them, it's what quarterback's going to make more plays, and I think Jimmy G, unfortunately for him, probably has to make more. Kirk Cousins in the running game, it looks like their running backs are going to be fully healthy, gives him a little bit more of an ability to be a game manager. Jimmy G's going to have to go out and make a few more plays for them. The difference to me is what's going to happen with the 49ers getting the extra week off. They're getting guys healthy. 3 defensive starters coming back. D Ford's coming back from a hamstring. Quan Alexander, same injury as J.J. Watt with the torn pec. Looks like he's going to play. And then Jaquiski Tart with his ribs is also going to be healthy. I think that week off has really benefited the 49ers. We talked about it going into the final week of the playoffs, who it benefits the most. You said the 49ers benefit the most from being the number 1 seed and getting the extra week off. Now it appears the home game may help them as well. I actually like the home team here. I like San Francisco to win at home. Little side note on this one, and people probably know this. Kyle Shanahan was Kirk Cousins' offensive coordinator in Washington, which is kind of fun. I saw people out there, maybe he knows a little bit of insight into what Kirk Cousins is thinking, which may be true, but he's they're both with completely different franchises now. I don't play a whole lot into it, but it is kind of fun to see, a former OC with his quarterback now facing off against each other in the playoffs. Both have really good defensive lines. I like 49ers overall defense a little bit better than the defensive line matchup. They both have 48 sacks in the regular season each. Both feature Pro Bowl defensive lines. I like the surrounding pieces around the 49ers defense, the back end, Richard Sherman and their secondary a little bit more to force Kirk. The defensive line is going to put Kirk Cousins under duress. I like the secondary of the 49ers to make some plays, perhaps cause some turnovers or cause incomplete passes, breakups, and so on. So I like the 49ers at home in this one.
You like that? You like that? I actually think Minnesota is going to pull the upset here and go to the NFC Championship. That's for you, Jimmy James. Thanks for watching. And the reason why is there are a couple of reasons why. Number one, getting Dalvin Cook back and healthy, and you saw how much Minnesota's offense changed dramatically with him in the lineup last week against New Orleans. Not only with his ability to run the ball, but then the ability for Minnesota to run play action. And Kevin Stefanski, the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, finally got his horses back and was able to call a much better game because he had his full allotment of weapons to throw to. Now, they got to get Stephon Diggs more involved this week. But again, I think it's similar to a scenario to what Tennessee did in upsetting New England. You've got your bell cow back.
Yeah.
Ride him.
Yeah.
Now, and for a couple of reasons you brought up, they're very good points. I like San Francisco's secondary a lot better than Minnesota's. And so having Dalvin Cook up front, yes, the San Francisco defensive line is very good. But to have Dalvin Cook there takes a lot of pressure off of Kirk Cousins to have to make throws down the field. It looks like Adam Thielen's going to play, and he had a bit of a bum ankle coming out of the New Orleans game after he missed a bunch of games due to a bad hammy. Looks like he's going to go. You got to get Stephon Diggs more involved. I think he only had 1 or 2 catches against New Orleans. He was pretty quiet on the field, on the sideline. He was throwing a temper tantrum multiple times. But so ride Dalvin Cook and ask Kirk Cousins not to lose the game for you. Be that game manager. And also, on the other side, we've given so much praise to San Francisco's defense for much of the year, and well-deserved. But you look at the last month of the season, this defense has been a little leaky.
Yeah, they've been giving up a few points the last few weeks.
The last 4 games of the regular season, they were giving up nearly 32 points per game. And I think most importantly, almost as important as the points per game, obviously, giving up 49% on third down.
Yeah.
25 out of 51 they've allowed on third down.
Not being able to get off the field definitely hurts.
Absolutely. And so what it does, it tire your defense out. And when you've got a hammer like Dalvin Cook, it's similar to Derrick Henry, a little smaller, of course. When you've got a hammer like Dalvin Cook, you can continue to extend drives out, keep your offense on the field, and keep the 49ers offense, and in particular keep George Kittle off the field.
Yeah. Because
obviously, he's the best tight end in football, and Minnesota, I don't think has a matchup for him. And it also keeps Minnesota's secondary off the field. Xavier Rhodes, I don't know what's happened to him. He was an all-pro, 2 years ago, and now he's going to be on the street after this season's over. Harrison Smith's getting a little older, so, the advantage there, the secondary goes to San Francisco, I would say for sure. But I think Minnesota, from what I saw last week, Kirk Cousins seemingly getting that monkey off his back, and he played really poised against New Orleans, really that entire game. I think
he did.
Yeah, he was under control for most of it. Even though New Orleans has a really good defense, and they were in the mix there, trying to get pressure on him, and he was still able to make throws. That last throw in overtime before the winner to Rudolph was absolutely that was world class.
To put him in position, that was phenomenal.
That was a world class throw. So I think Minnesota gets it done here. I think this is no more than a 1-score game the entire way. You can see San Francisco's getting a touchdown in the PAT. And because I like doing scores, I think Minnesota wins 23-21. Will it come down to a kick? Who knows? Hopefully so.
Hopefully it does.
Yeah, hopefully so for this guy's sake. And hopefully that's the case. So, I think Minnesota's a 6 seed, wins here in San Francisco. And maybe some questions going forward with the 49ers about, is Jimmy G really the guy?
Yeah, well, they paid him like he was, and we'll see what happens in the long run. But being the number 1 seed, I mean, if they get bounced in the divisional round, I don't know if it's time to blow it all up just yet. But There will be a lot of questions. There's a lot of pressure on the 49ers being the number one seed in the NFC. If they happen to lose this game, there's going to be a lot of questions about why they couldn't beat the Vikings, who didn't eke in, but certainly weren't all that impressive, didn't win their own division. There will definitely be a few questions about what happened if the 49ers happen to lose this one.
Well, and especially given the fact that this is such a loaded NFC field. Yeah. So many teams with 11, 12, 13 wins here that they were able to come out on top and be proven at the end of the regular season statistically to be the best of that group.
Yeah.
To go out in the divisional round and lose, I think would raise some questions.
Oh, certainly.
Going forward. So there you go. As I said, I have Minnesota pulling the upset here and moving on as the 6th seed into the NFC Championship. Wouldn't it be fun if Seattle and Minnesota, the two wild card teams, playing for the NFC title?
It's feasible. Possible. We're going to talk about it here in a second.
We will. But first, let's move to the AFC divisional round, which happened Saturday night. And we were just talking about the Tennessee Titans after going into New England and beating the Patriots.
As correctly predicted by one Jason Grefer.
This guy told you it was going to happen, and it did.
Well done.
Even though Ryan Tannehill, I don't even think he threw for 100 yards.
No, I think he was like 8 of 15 for like 76. But as you mentioned, what travels... Run games travel.
Running in defense. And I
marking
told you, Derrick Henry,
they ran him really well.
They ran him into the ground.
Yeah.
34, 35 carries, which I said they had to do.
Yeah, 184 yards and a touchdown. And really the defense keeping New England off the board really helped a lot. But like you mentioned, the running game was really the difference in that one, and they controlled the clock and they controlled the ball. And sent old Tommy packing, but
not for the last time.
Not for the last time. Doesn't sound like. Now we'll talk about it a little bit more after the season. What potential landing spots there are for Tom Brady? But it sounds like he intends to play longer. Now he's mentioned in the past he wants to play till he's 45. That would be at least 2 more seasons. The questions surrounding if he'll play anywhere else besides New England are a little bit confusing to me because I don't think he does play anywhere. And we know what's happened in the past with, Joe Montana in Kansas City. We've seen quarterbacks move on to different places to end their careers, but for some reason that one just doesn't feel like it's going to happen.
One thing I found interesting is a couple days ago, Robert Kraft saying that he hopes and prays that Tom stays with New England, and I'm sitting there thinking,
guess who's in charge of that, Rob?
Don't you have the say over whether that happens?
Come on,
unless
Bobbert.
you're gonna go the Patriots way and lowball the greatest quarterback of all time.
No, I mean, which you can, but you'd like to think that Tom will do this for essentially a $5 million per year. And then just give him everything that's got the number 12 on it in the merchandise. Just give him all the money from that because you're going to make millions off of that.
Put out
anyway.
Like special goat jerseys and say he gets half the profits.
Take donations from the faithful there, and you can probably like quadruple his salary. So, I don't think he ends up anywhere but New England. But we can talk about that at a later date. But anyways. Tom Brady loses. The GOAT loses, and we got the Titans heading to Baltimore this week. Again, Baltimore benefiting from the week off, getting Mark Ingram healthy, Earl Thomas healthy, Mark Andrews healthy. Lamar Jackson had the flu this week, so that little extra time to recover from the flu always helps. This one is interesting to me because, as we mentioned, running games travel. But by the way, the Ravens have the number 1 running attack in NFL
history.
The Titans are third, but they're a stark 79 yards per game, 69 yards per game behind what the Ravens average. So. Ravens are number 1 in time of possession, despite the fact that the Titans run the ball really well. They're actually 30th in time of possession, which blew my mind.
That's very surprising.
It's a little bit surprising for as much as they like to run the ball. Now, Ryan Tannehill's been the best quarterback since he took over the starting job. He's been the best quarterback in the league as far as yards and efficiency. But I think Baltimore's just too much for them. Like they're 1 week to prepare. Now I know Baltimore gets 2 weeks, but. Jimmy James.
Thanks,
in the
Jimmy.
chat. Robert Kraft's going to hire a masseuse for Tom Brady. Well done, Jimmy.
Jimmy James.
I know he knows some good parlors in South Florida. They could probably find some hookup for Tommy. But But anyways, back to the game. I like Baltimore in this one. I think this one of the ones that were available, I think this one is the most obvious for the home team. I think Baltimore, they've just been in a class amongst themselves with their offense and how they can control the ball. Lamar Jackson, sometimes you see athletic quarterbacks like that where he kind of took over the job last year. Sometimes they get figured out and they have kind of a drop off, and that has not been the case with Lamar Jackson. People haven't figured him out yet. This is the first time they're going to face each other this season. Tennessee with a week to prepare, and obviously Baltimore's had 2 weeks to prepare. It's definitely everything says Baltimore's going to win this game, and I think they do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Baltimore wins this game as well. So here you go, Baltimore. Both of us having Baltimore over Tennessee, and I think Tennessee, obviously, their defense is going to keep them in this game. The running game is going to keep him in this game. I said last week, Tennessee, you got to ride Derrick Henry hard. He better, if you want any shot in this game. Number one, you got to convert third downs.
Yeah.
You have to stay on the field.
You got to keep Lamar Jackson off the field.
Yeah,
that's what you have to do.
And in doing so, Derrick Henry's probably got to carry the ball 40 times in this game.
Yeah, 36. I believe it was 36 last week against.
He's got to go over 40 in this game.
Yeah.
Because the Tennessee defense. Nobody's really been able to stop Lamar Jackson because nobody's been able to figure out the read option, which was in large part due to the signing of Mark Ingram, which I told you folks at the beginning of the season was one of the underrated signest in football. Now, nobody saw the running game doing what it was going to do.
Yeah, nobody saw 206 yards per game.
No, nobody saw the greatest rushing season in NFL history, but that's a big part of it. He still looks like he's going to go with that calf injury, but it's still not 100%. But he's getting better, and
he's been a limited participant in practice, but he has practiced since Tuesday, so he's going to practice all week. It would appear that he's going to play.
I think Tennessee covers here. You see, Baltimore is giving 10.
Which is a lot. That's a big number for a playoff game.
It is a big number,
sure.
And especially for two teams that like to run the ball. They take time off the clock. They limit the number of possessions.
Yeah.
And so I have Baltimore winning 23-16. I don't really think it ever feels that close.
Yeah.
Possibly Tennessee gets a garbage touchdown in the waning minute just to make it that way, and the backdoor cover.
Baltimore probably has it at a 10 point or more game from the large part.
Yeah.
This is one of those games that it could be one possession per quarter. Like this really could be, a couple 7-minute possessions per quarter, with a little bit of carryover. But you might see, one team only get the ball 3 times in the first half and the other team only get it 2 in the first half. It could get really interesting. Points could be at a premium in this one.
That's the reason why I was surprised the number is so high at 10.
Yeah.
That it was double digits.
And the over-under is at 46.5. Now they could easily hit it because the explosiveness of the Ravens offense could easily make those numbers.
Sure.
They can if they make big plays. But like you mentioned, Tennessee's got a pretty good defense. Yeah. And this really, because of the time of possession, obviously, with the Ravens leading time of possession in all of the NFL, and Tennessee's going to want to slow the game down with their running game. They're going to want to limit the possessions. This really could be a 3 possessions per half type game.
If I'm Tennessee, I'm choking the play clock down under 10 seconds every play.
Yeah, they shouldn't be in any kind of hurry unless there's a situation where they get a big play and they're trying to catch them off guard. If you're grinding it out at 4 or 5 yards per carry, I think you just got to slow it down. Break the huddle late, snap the ball late, and just try and get to third and short situations and convert first downs and keep the ball moving.
One of the things that's also was amazing to me during the regular season, and I don't know where the exact number is right now for the majority of the regular season, the Baltimore Ravens held the ball in the fourth quarter for an average of over 10 minutes. So I mean, you talk about choking the life out of a football game and choking the possessions down. That's another reason why I think Tennessee, especially early on, needs to establish Derrick Henry, needs to establish enough of Ryan Tannehill. I wouldn't be, if I was Tennessee, I would put A.J. Brown in the slot to stay away from Marcus Peters because Peters is not going to play in the slot. He's going to play on the outside at corner. Put A.J. Brown in the slot, see if you can get a matchup on a nickel and try and work that in the passing game.
Yep.
But, I think Baltimore just all around just too much here. For Tennessee to try and go on the road for the second week in a row and pull off the upset. This is it's weird to say. This is a major step up from New England to Baltimore here.
But it is. I mean, truly, we talked about New England and their struggles all season and how, they were winning games with very little offense, and Tom Brady really wasn't looking that spectacular. Now he's throwing to essentially no one. But this is a different game. This is a different team. Baltimore much more explosive, much more controlling. Lamar Jackson's the most dynamic player in the game right now. I think that this is a totally different step, and kudos to them for going to New England to win. But this one is a little bit too tall of a task, I think.
Who are the three NFL writers that voted Russell Wilson first team All Pro over Lamar Jackson?
It's shocking. Well, and how does Derrick Henry not the first team running back? They give the All Pro goes to Christian McCaffrey for
because of 1,000 rushing.
But I get it. But the running back and the flex position, why does he get both?
I don't know.
Make him the flex and make the NFL's leading rusher, leading in yards and leading in touchdowns is not the All Pro running back.
Shaq Barrett of Tampa led the NFL in sacks, not first team All Pro. Yeah. And then if you look at the All-Pro team, there were 14 players on defense. Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, inexplicably, the 11 guys on the field, but somehow 3 extra on defense. And
14 guys.
On offense, they have a flex and a running back position, and one guy gets them both. I'm not sure why you do that. Why not? Sense. I don't know. It should be similar to an all-conference team where you have a few more guys than are on the field. All-conference teams usually have 2 running backs, and they have about 4 receivers and 2 tight ends and 5, whatever. And I get it. It's all secondary, and it doesn't mean much. And I'm sure, Lamar Jackson winning a Super Bowl, he'll get over not being all pro. But it is a little odd.
I know everybody's watching the show knows I love Russell Wilson. He should get more MVP consideration. But I mean, come on. I know Seattle's been riding a razor thin wire all year. I think now they're like 11-2 in 1-score games. That's how close they play every single week. Yeah. And we'll talk about Seattle here in just a moment. But first, let's move to Sunday's games, and let's start in the AFC because that's the first on the docket. Houston, after surviving Buffalo and that controversial second half play, the guy in the end zone, did he give himself up? But the rule, they got the call wrong. I'm going to tell you that, right? I'm going to tell you that.
Well, the NFL, as a trend with officials,
the referee originally got the call right. Then the other officials came in and basically convinced him to change his call, which was wrong. Stupid. But Houston wins in overtime. I told you what happened. Yeah. Buffalo shouldn't have blown a 16-0 lead.
Yeah, but Buffalo was up 16-0.
They were,
and they ended up blowing. Bills Mafia was out in force, by the way, down in Houston.
We also told you it would be the first one to 20 points wins that game.
Exactly, 20 points won that game.
Yeah, Houston kicks field goal in overtime to win. So they're on the road now. They're at Kansas City, and I think this is the biggest rout of the weekend. Unfortunately, Buffalo was basically picking food out of Deshaun Watson's teeth. They were in his face so much. Seven sacks, hit a bunch more times. I don't see it changing much here. There's only so much the guy can do. Yes, Houston was better defensively because J.J. Watt's a freak.
Yeah, first came back from injury. J.J. Watt was disruptive. I believe he only had 1 sack, but very disruptive in the backfield. Like, he's just a super, super talented guy. And as we mentioned, he's the juice. They had him mic'd up on the sideline. Yeah. He is a guy who brings the juice and really changes the attitude of that defensive front just by him being out there. And he's not the most talented guy. He's getting up there in years. He's no longer the most talented guy on the field all the time. Yeah. But for certain plays, he's the most talented guy on the field, and he can make offensive linemen look silly a lot. And it really did make a difference for their defensive front, particularly when they were down 16-0. He's one of those guys that rallied that defense and really, shut down the Bills for the rest of the game, essentially, and got that team turned around and really pretty awesome win for them, considering it could have gone the other way really early on. But I think you're right. I think this is another one. These last 2 games, I think these are the 2 that are the most obvious for the home team here. Chiefs defense really stepped it up. The last 6 games are only allowing 11 points per game. This is a rematch of an earlier game in the season. Kansas City actually lost at home to the Texans in Week 6, 31-24.
Not happening.
By the way, Kansas City was missing 5 starters in that game. Pat Mahomes was hobbled with an ankle that he had injured the week before. They didn't get any sacks of Deshaun Watson, surprisingly enough. Probably the only game of the season where the Texans didn't allow a sack sack was the first time this matchup happened. That's not happening this time. The Bills got to him 7 times. Kansas City's going to dial up the defense again, allowing only 11.3 points per game in their last 6. I think they get after Deshaun Watson in this one. I think this is a bad day for Houston. I think Kansas City comes out with something to prove. Their goal is Super Bowl or bust. I think this is obviously it's their first playoff game. I think this is the start of it. I think Houston comes to town and goes home with their tail between their legs because I think Kansas City wins this one pretty handily.
I have Kansas City by 2 scores here, 31-17, and I don't even know that it's that particularly close. I just think, especially with Houston again not knowing if they're going to have Will Fuller, and he's the stretch guy that Watson can chuck it to down the field. Not that DeAndre Hopkins can't be, but Will Fuller's more that traditional guy you line up in the slot to try and pull a safety back and then clears out everything from underneath. But when he's not in the game, that offense is completely different. And you saw how much they struggled against Buffalo to put points on the board. That's a good Buffalo defense. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, Buffalo's defense isn't bad.
They're very good defense, but
they struggled at home to score points against Buffalo. And Kansas City, like I said, playing really well of late. Averaging just over 10, 11.3 per game. I think they're going to struggle in Kansas City this week.
So there you go. So we both have Baltimore and Kansas City to move on to meet in the AFC Championship. Let's get to the final NFC divisional game. And we touched on just a moment ago, Seattle with the win in Philadelphia. It was what it was. Carson Wentz got knocked out with a concussion from a play from Jadeveon Clowney that he should be fined for because it was a dirty hit.
He'll probably get fined for it, unfortunately, for the Eagles
too not little,
called
a
penalty in the game.
Yep.
And too little, too late. Left the game. Well, came back for a brief period of time, left the game eventually under the concussion protocol. By the way, credit to Russell Wilson for the first thing, talking to Coach Peterson after the game. First thing he did was ask if Carson was okay. Yeah. Which credit to him for doing that. Russell Wilson always been a stand-up human being by all accounts.
Credit to Josh McCown for coming in and trying.
40-year-old Josh
doing
McCown.
What he could and
doing the best he could.
He was like 18 to 24 throwing the ball.
He didn't do bad. He just his 40-year-old legs kind of let him down, especially on that fourth down play. His 40-year-old legs. Carson Wentz probably would have been able to win that game. Just you hate to play the what-if game, but the athleticism of Carson Wentz probably would have benefited him. 40-year-old guy trying to run away from Jadeveon Clowney is tough.
Because Carson Wentz has been healthy this year for the first time in a while, and so because of that, Josh McCown probably has not taken a snap with the ones in probably 3 months.
No, and again, he was signed from being a high school football coach earlier in the year. So, and in training camp they were letting him go back like during the week and coach. Yeah,
and come back on the weekends. So he was like a part-time backup quarterback.
Yeah, I mean credit to him, but it's tough. You hate to see it with Carson Wentz, and then there's mention out there, he can't stay healthy. Well, to be fair, he's not trying to be injured. He's not sitting out for a bad ankle. Like Carson Wentz is having serious issues, and
it's
again,
just bad luck.
It's it's a dirty hit. Like intent may not have been there, but it's a dirty hit. You put your head down and you put your helmet right in the back of his head, like.
Well, and it's the thing too is that his arms were down by his side, so he's literally spearing his head down into the back of Wentz. So Clowney should and likely will get fined for that. But anyway, Seattle wins. They're on to Green Bay, as we said earlier. It's going to be cold in Green Bay. I think it's going to be in the mid-20s.
27 at kickoff is the prediction.
That's actually warm for Green Bay by their standards.
Might be sun shining. Who knows?
It's a game I think easily. I think Seattle could win. I don't know that it's necessarily it favors as a home team as much as you think it does here. I think Seattle can definitely.
Why did I say it favors the home team? I think the home teams are winning all of these games, but
you said just before like this one like clearly favors the home team, and also too you look at like the home team's won the last 8 games in this series between these two, so that's kind of a weird note too. I think this is where the lack of running game that Seattle has catches up to them. There's only so much you can ask for Marshawn Lynch. And a homer there that was trying to fill in. There's only so much you can do.
Well, Petey said they're going to feature more in the offense this week. Because they kind of have to, especially if they want to win this game. They're going to have to feature Marshawn Lynch more.
No kidding.
His plate was small because he just came essentially off the streets. his plate was small, and they were using him only in short yardage situations. By the way, the touchdown run that he had last week. That was beast mode. And he wasn't, and ironically enough, I'm watching it, and I'm like, he's not even playing that low. But it just shows you how powerful Marshawn Lynch is he's just a powerful, no-nonsense running back. He's kind of the old-school downhill running back. Again, you give the ball on the 1 yard line, and you get another Super Bowl. But that's beside the point. This one is a little more interesting, though. Like you mentioned, the home team not the clear favorite. 7-1 on the road for Seattle, 7-1 at home for the Packers. Both kind of plays in both favors. And, oh, by the way, Russell Wilson has the highest passer rating all time on the road of any quarterback in the history of the NFL. Russell Wilson, the highest quarterback rating ever on the road. That's what makes this one a little bit more interesting. Like you mentioned, they're going to have to lean on the run game a little bit more in this one. You have to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. I don't know if Marshawn Lynch's plate can get big enough for them to kind of shoulder the load here. I think this game is close. I think this game is a low-scoring game. I don't think this one gets out of hand. You're not going to see either team get over 30, I don't believe, in this game. The other thing that Seattle's going to need is DK Metcalf has to show up. Now, he's been good all season, but 7 for 160 and a touchdown last week, really the difference maker in that game for them on offense. Russell Wilson finally getting a deep threat out of DK Metcalf, who, playing with his chip on his shoulder. The kid was a freak at the combine and kind of fell to Seattle there in the second round. And now he's playing to the potential that a lot of people thought he could, especially this last week. The difference for me is turnovers. Both teams plus 20 or plus 12 over the regular season for turnovers. Seattle just turns the ball over more. Their defense creates more turnovers, but they turn the ball over more. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be in a position where he has to force stuff in this game. I think that he's going to be able to play, check downs and manage the game a little bit more. Russell Wilson's going to need to be relied on to make plays in this game, which is going to force him to force things to happen. Just because, like you mentioned, the running game probably not going to be the one thing that carries them. Russell Wilson's going to have to shoulder more, which I think makes it more likely that he's going to create or give away turnovers in this one. I think that's the problem for Seattle, is giving the ball extra possessions to Aaron Rodgers, and that's what ultimately wins the game for Green Bay.
I think Green Bay's front seven can go into this game with a mindset of, let's just go get Russell Wilson. Again, because the lack of running game that Seattle has, because they've had multiple guys get hurt, and again, you sign Marshawn Lynch off the street, and he's had one game under his belt. How much game shape can he really be in? Yep. Training and doing all that stuff is a lot different than actual playing shape. You know how that goes. You can spend all the time you want lifting weights and doing all the calisthenics and training that you want, but it's a whole different thing to be in football game shape.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's where it catches up to him. Zadarius Smith had a wonderful season, 13, 14, 15 sacks. Again, not first-team All-Pro for some reason. I think he has a big game. He can just focus on going to get Russell Wilson. And I think this game where Seattle just does not have enough offensively around Russell Wilson. Metcalf was great, and the great catch at the end to seal it was obviously huge.
Yeah, by the way, credit to them for calling that play even.
Yeah.
Great play design, by the way. They lined up in a bunch formation, ran what looked to be like a short wide receiver screen, because I believe it was 3rd and 4 or so, and so they needed to get a first down. So they ran what looked like to be a little wide receiver screen. DK Metcalf goes out, stutters, and then takes off. Seattle was Philadelphia in man coverage and didn't have anybody deep to get back to that.
Just throw it up and let the freak go get it.
Throw it up and let him go catch it, and that's exactly what happened that sealed the game for him.
Yeah, I Green Bay winning 27-21. Like you said, I think the points are going to be a little harder to come by, especially early on in this game. I'm would not be surprised if by the end of the first quarter it's like a 3-0 or even a scoreless first quarter. It's going to take some time. Number one, because you have to acclimate yourselves to the cold. And I mean, even Green Bay is too as well. It has not been the traditional frozen tundra that we've been accustomed to seeing in Green Bay.
You see what it is here. It's going to be almost 60 degrees here today. It's going to be 70 on Saturday. Yeah. Like, it's been a warm winter thus far for pretty much everybody. And you're starting to get snow up there in Green Bay and in the northern part of the country. But they've been outside in probably 45 and 50 degree weather for the last 2 weeks up until earlier this week. Now it's down in the 20s. It is going to be a little bit of an adjustment, but again, the familiarity with playing at home, and I mentioned it before the playoffs started, that Green Bay playing at home in the playoffs is a huge advantage for them. Like you mentioned, may not be as big of an advantage with Seattle coming to town because of the way Seattle and Russell Wilson in particular play on the road. Again, 7-1 this season. It's still a tall task, but I like Green Bay in this one.
So here's a recap of our divisional picks. We're both there with Green Bay over Seattle. Same thing with Kansas City over Houston. And same thing with Baltimore over Tennessee. Here is our only split, though. I have Minnesota winning at San Francisco, and Adam's sticking with the 49ers as the 1 seed to move on to the conference championships.
Not a homer. I am a homer. I'm picking the home teams. That's what I'm doing. So, we'll see what happens. I've been trying to be a little smarter about my picks lately. It's benefited me in the bowl pick'em, so I'm trying to do a little bit with the NFL as well. Speaking of college bowl games, we got one kicker for you this week. This week's Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week, Indiana's Logan Justice missed an extra point early in the game when they were up 10. Ended up Tennessee scores 2 touchdowns late. He gets a reprieve, gets a shot from 52. Oh, by the way, not short. He left it wide right. Only the third missed extra point of his career, second this season. He missed one as a freshman. They ended up losing to Tennessee 23-22. Tennessee scored two late touchdowns in that one to win the game, but Logan Justice, if he makes an extra point or gets his reprieve from 52, they win the game. But for that reason, Indiana's Logan Justice, you are this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
There you go. See him in wind-up form there. A lefty.
Yeah, a little lefty.
And wearing a wide receiver's number in 82. But that was a game where Tennessee was down like 14 points with 5 minutes to go, and teams going into that game this year were like 470.
Yeah, it was the first time all season that a team that trailed by two scores. I think it was because it was a 13-point game, if I recall.
Yeah, you're right. It was 22-9 because of the missed extra point.
Yeah, the two scores had won all season. So good for Tennessee, by the way. Got the onside kick, little dribbler onside kick to get the second before the second touchdown. It was pretty cool.
After the national championship game is determined, Tennessee's going to have the second longest winning streak in the country at 6.
Wow!
Once the winning streaks of LSU and Clemson get snapped, they're going to have the second. They're going to have the second longest winning streak in the country at 6.
Well, that's shocking.
I
would not have guessed.
I wouldn't have guessed it either until somebody brought that up somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
That's funny.
I don't remember where it was.
Speaking of winning streaks, the FCS National Championship this Saturday at noon. By the way, big one to watch here. Saturday at noon on ABC. Rematch of the last couple national championship games. The James Madison Dukes taking on the North Dakota State Bison. The North Dakota State Bison, kind of the benchmark for FCS football right now. 7 of the last,
I'd say so.
Yeah, 7 of the last 8 national championships. Their only loss coming to James Madison in 2016. Otherwise, winners of 7 of the last 8. The Dukies, as I don't know if you call them that. I don't know if you call them the Dukies or just Duke. Whatever.
I just go with the Dukes because then folks in Durham, North Carolina will get pissed.
Yeah, whatever.
What a Dukies!
Dukies 14-1. Their only loss this year to West Virginia by a touchdown early in the season. A game that they apparently could have won. I don't recall.
It was like 20-13.
20-13.
They were right there.
Top 2 defenses in FCS football this year. James Madison number 1, North Dakota State number 2. 2 of the top 10 offenses. James Madison only 15 turnovers on the season, averaging 1 per game. But, by the way, North Dakota State's only 6 turnovers, 2 of them in one game against Butler early in the season, only 4 the rest of the season. Talk about a matchup of giants. Like this is the way the FCS championship should have been all season long. Yeah. They're the 2 best teams in the country. The true playoff has created a true national championship game, unlike that crap that we have at the FBS level. This one, to me, and again, it's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, and admittedly, we don't watch FCS football all season either. But again, NDSU, the landmark team right now in Division I AA or FCS football. For a long time, everybody said it was Marshall before Marshall made the jump to the next level. They were the team that kind of carried the load there. They really were. Still didn't have the success that North Dakota State did. I got North Dakota State in this one. I got them winning their 8th of their last 9 national championships. So you think about it, since 2012, they will have won 8 of the last 9.
Well,
if they win this one, 8 of the last 9 national championships.
You've spurned on, obviously, multiple generations of players. You've had multiple head coaches go through there as well.
Yeah.
The guy that started it all, I can't remember his name. I believe he's now the head coach at Wyoming. Chris Kleiman just left after last season to go to Kansas State and took them to like an 8-win season.
Yeah.
So obviously he's destined for even bigger things down the line in his career. But and it just goes on this year, and I think this is going to be the best of the lot as far as national championship games go. Like you said, these have been the 2 best FCS teams all year long, and I don't know that it's been close.
No.
You know, you talk about James Madison's one loss was in the season opener, 20-13 to West Virginia.
Yeah, held West Virginia to 20 points.
And
by the way,
they can in West Virginia, as we've seen, they can score. They can put points on the board to held them to 20. But I'm with North Dakota State here. I'm excited to watch this game. This is going to be, I think it's going to be an all-time classic. This is going to be smash mouth football. And as good as both teams' offenses have been, I think the defenses stick out even more.
Really good. Again, the top 2 defenses in FCS football this year. This one again might be a race to 20. It could be a close one the entire way. Hopefully, it is. I like North Dakota State in this one. Start your day off right. You got a noon kickoff.
Yeah,
on ABC.
Watch
this game. Like if you want true college football and you want to see a really good matchup between 2 teams, not the bowl game matchups that they have, at the FBS level. Some of those bowl games just aren't competitive games and they're not fun to watch. This one is fun to watch. These are 2 teams that are matched up very evenly, strength against strength, defense against defense, running game against running game, efficient quarterback against efficient quarterback. Like this is really going to be a really good football game to watch.
Well, you talk about efficient quarterbacks. You talk about the running games, too. North Dakota State averages 290 yards on the ground. James Madison does a little bit more. They like to throw it a little bit more of a 50-50 balance. But North Dakota State has a true freshman quarterback in Trey Lance, who's thrown for almost 3,000 yards this year. We think, okay, maybe that's not so much. He does more in the running. I'll get to that in a second. 68% completion-wise, so nearly 7 out of 10 he's completing. 28 passing touchdowns, 0 picks.
Yeah.
Has not thrown an interception all season long. And remember, he's a true freshman taking over this dynasty at North Dakota State. And, oh, by the way, he's run for almost 1,000 yards. He's going to go over 1,000 yards rushing on the season and 13 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah. Doesn't suck.
No, it doesn't suck at all. North Dakota State, I think, has like 4 guys that have run for over 500 yards on the year. He's number 2 on the team. They've got a tailback that's going to go over 1,000 yards in this game, too. James Madison, like I said, they can move the ball, but North Dakota State with their ball control and their defense, I like just enough here. I haven't won it 24-20. Neither result's going to shock me whether one team wins or another. The story obviously is there for North Dakota State, going for their 8th title in 9 years. And again, they're not moving to FBS. Why would they?
No, they continue to do. They're the only show in town in North Dakota. The Fargo lives for this. You saw, Game Day went there a few years ago.
They went there earlier this year when they played South Dakota State.
That's right. A phenomenal atmosphere there. The only show in town. No need to make the jump. They compete against FBS schools constantly
and win.
They beat my Chippewas a few years back. They don't suck, and they're really good at what they do. There's no reason to go anywhere. Just continue to do what you do.
You've seen the last few years, FBS teams, like I said, we've seen them they beat Iowa State, I think, once or twice. They've gone the road and maybe beat Iowa. FBS teams now don't schedule them.
No, they didn't have an FBS team on their schedule this year, probably for that reason, because they're really good. They don't suck. So again, changing the guard with coaches, with players, the model of consistency right now, and a team that's fun to watch. We've watched their national championship games before. We've watched their matchups against FBS teams when they're on TV in the past. They're fun to watch. Like it's good football. It's really good football.
I believe they could join FBS right now and immediately be an 8-win program.
Yeah, you put them in the Mountain West and they could win the Mountain West. Like they're that good. Like they don't suck.
Right.
So
absolutely.
They have their options. If they want to make the jump, they're not a team that's going to struggle. Similar to an Appalachian State, who was really good at that level, made the jump, and has competed for championships and wins bowl games at the next level. North Dakota State could do that, but is there really a need to? Like, you're already getting kids to come to Fargo. You got the number 1 pick in the NFL draft in Carson Wentz a few years back. Like, you can do whatever you want at this point, and just run Fargo, be the only show in town, continue with what you're doing.
Well, and the thing too, also they can take advantage of too is there are a lot of guys. I'm sure they've had plenty of guys come through there over the years that were basically going to be maybe preferred walk-ons at a bunch
fringe guys
at like Power 5 conferences, and they think, well, no, walk on, you got to pay your own way, and then here comes North Dakota State saying, yes, we're FCS, but come here, we can offer you a Scally, and you're going to get a ring.
And you still got the path.
Exactly.
You still got the path of the NFL.
Absolutely.
Carson Wentz is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
You still have your path of the NFL out of there. So
just watch it. It's Saturday at noon. It's going to be.
It's worth watching.
The schedule's wide open. Sit down and watch it. It's going to be a great football game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on to a game we hope is another great football game. And now it's time to talk about the national championship between Clemson and LSU on this coming Monday night in Superdome. And here, once we go through some of this, we'll give you our picks as to who wins the game. But first, let's talk about each side. This is, in theory, a pretty even matchup between these two schools. Both of them have really high-powered offenses. Both of them have pretty good defenses. I would say LSU's pretty good. Clemson's has been stellar all year long.
Phenomenal.
LSU's been good when they've had to be. They've given up some time. But
well, they've been good the last 3 weeks, and that's really the biggest
what matters.
key. They've limited Oklahoma, A&M, and Georgia their lowest point totals over the last 3 weeks. LSU's defense does not suck right now.
So let's start with LSU then. In your mind, what area does LSU have as close to a clear advantage over Clemson as there is, given the fact this is a very, very close matchup?
It is a close matchup, but I think their high-powered offense and their ability to score points is actually an advantage, and I know it's not by a huge margin, but their offense is really good, and it's one of the most efficient offenses in college football history. Clearly the most efficient offense this season. You look at what they did against Oklahoma, just disgusting, and you want to go back to make the argument of did Oklahoma belong there? Well, did any team belong there, really? Whoever was going to be number 4, it was likely going to be the same result. It really didn't matter. Just pick your amount of touchdowns. Joe Burrow goes out and has 7 touchdowns, tied one Cooper Rush from Central Michigan for the most touchdowns in a bowl game.
You had to get it in.
Had to get it in from the Bahamas Bowl, the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl a few years back against Western Kentucky. Shout out Cooper Rush. But anyway, this one I think LSU's biggest advantage is their high-powered offense, just because they're going to have to score points in this game, and I think their advantage lies in the fact that they've been able to score points all season, and Joe Burrow's efficiency has really, really, really led them to this high-powered offense. His efficiency and his ability to put balls in small spaces and to score points quickly like they did with Oklahoma. To score 42 points and a half, that's an advantage.
I think specifically with LSU offensively, their wide receiver core, I believe,
it's the best in college football.
It's deeper than Clemson's. I mean, LSU has 4 guys with over 500 yards receiving. One of them is Thaddeus Moss, Randy's son, who's a great tight end.
I believe 2 of them set the all-time record for LSU for receiving yards.
2 of them are over like 1,100 yards.
In the same season, 2 of them broke the previous record for all-time receiving yards in LSU history.
Clemson, I believe, just has 1 over 800 yards. Yeah. Obviously, they like to spread it around a little bit more, and they rely a little bit more on their run game. Travis Etienne, obviously, has been really good all year long. But he can also come out of the backfield and catch the ball, similar to LSU has discovered with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I think the wide receiver core, especially the barrage of weapons that Joe Burrow has to throw to, I think is better than a Clemson's. On the other side for Clemson, I think the big thing they have that's been an advantage for them all season long is the offensive line protecting Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
we saw against Ohio State Lawrence running it more than what I think we were accustomed to seeing. He's been more of a pocket passer. He's the athlete. He's good enough to run it, but he hasn't.
Well, obviously, he outran Ohio State's entire defense to the end zone. The kid can run,
but it's not something I think a lot of people pin their hat to and said that's going to be the difference in that game was Trevor Lawrence run the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in comparison between the two schools, Trevor Lawrence has been sacked 15 times this season, so about 1 a game.
Yeah.
LSU's given up LSU's allowed their defense to get to Joe Burrow 29 times.
Yeah.
So
which
we
is
know,
surprising. That's a big number for the best offense.
And we know how good Clemson's defensive line has been over the years. It's not as good this year because they lost 5 guys to the NFL.
3 first-round draft picks out of those 5.
They're still really good.
Yeah, they're really good.
And that's the thing. So we've seen Burrow, though. He's been able to buy time and scramble and move around, give his receivers time. And I think that's what makes LSU's offense so dynamic is Burrow's ability to buy time. But I think Clemson, that's going to be a big key. Can LSU protect for Joe Burrow like he's been accustomed to keep this high-powered offense in rolling? So I think that's the big thing. And can LSU get pressure on Trevor Lawrence? Because not a lot of teams have been able to do that. You notice a lot of games where Trevor Lawrence is walking on the field with a clean jersey because he's not been hit in one one way or another.
Both of the lines for Clemson, offensive and defensive line, are really good. So that I agree that could definitely be a difference in this game. Is Clemson protecting their quarterback and obviously getting to Joe Burrow.
Okay, so now let's move on let's talk a little bit more about Clemson here.
Wait a minute. By the way, what's my biggest advantage for Clemson?
What is your biggest advantage for Clemson?
The biggest advantage for Clemson, I'm going intangible, that they've been here before.
Okay,
they've been here before, and they've done it. They've done it before. Looking to win their 3rd national championship out of the last 4 years. They've been in this position before. I think that makes a difference because LSU hasn't had to deal with the pressure of a national championship game before, and they haven't had to play a 4th quarter of a game before. Clemson's been in comeback situations. Even 2 weeks ago against Ohio State, they had to come back. They had to have the comeback. LSU hasn't had to do that all season, really. Like against Alabama and the first game against Georgia, a little bit closer games for them. But their semifinal game wasn't even a competition. They haven't had to deal with adversity in the last few weeks. You look at the SEC championship game, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Mississippi. Like they haven't had to play a close game in the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And Clemson had to play with Ohio State for the entire 4 quarters of that last game. I think their advantage really is being there because they've done it 2 out of the last 3 years, looking for 3 out of the last 4 years. I think that is an intangible for them that benefits them. Dabo Sweeney having been there before, Trevor Lawrence having been there before, ATN having been there before. I think all of that kind of benefits Clemson in the long run.
So, with that being said, does that factor into Clemson winning the title? So basically, it's Clemson wins the national title if.
Actually, I think the intangibles help. I think they win the national title if Brent Venables' defense can create enough problems in the backfield. Like you just mentioned, their defensive front and LSU's not inability to protect the quarterback, but they've given up more than a sack per game. Putting Joe Burrow under duress is really going to be the key to this game. Brent Venables is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, probably could be a head coach somewhere, but he's got a good gig going down there. He's got his own get-back coach, which I think is hilarious. But they have to make Joe Burrow make throws under duress. They got after Justin Fields. Justin Fields, 0 interceptions going into that game, or 1 interception going into the game, threw 2 in the same game. Now, 1 was just basically a punt, throwing it up to the defense to clinch the game, but the other one where the safety came across and made the play on the sideline. They have to put Joe Burrow under duress. Joe Burrow has always jumped out to early leads. He's always been efficient, and he might have percentage-wise, he does have the most accurate arm, but the throws he's making aren't exactly easy throws. He doesn't necessarily just throw slants and checkdowns. Like, he puts balls in space that only his receiver can catch, and if they aren't caught by his receiver, they're an interception or they're incomplete. And he does a really good job at squeezing balls into tight windows, but he's really good at that when he's clean. If you put him under duress, it's going to make it more difficult for him. So I think Clemson has to get to Joe Burrow, has to create 3rd and long situations, tackles in the backfield, and keeping him uncomfortable the entire game for them to win this game.
Yeah, I think there's 2 factors for me. Number 1 goes to that point. I think they need to force 2 turnovers from Joe Burrow, whether it's 2 interceptions or a strip sack, whatever the case may be. 2 turnovers could be all the difference. And the other factor for Clemson, I think in this game, Travis Etienne needs to get 20 carries in this game. Now, and that has not happened at all this season. It's high this year is 17 back in October against Florida State. I think he needs to carry the ball 20 times in this game. Doesn't have to necessarily be 30, 35, 40 carries a game, but 20. And for anything because he is so dynamic. Not only running the ball, of course he can catch it out of the backfield. He had nearly 100 yards receiving against Ohio State, so that's obviously
really the difference in the game because he was the one who on the drive to take the lead. He was the one who caught the balls over the middle to make the plays.
But I think also too another factor to that point is keeping Joe Burrow off the field.
Yep.
Keeping your defense fresh for when Joe Burrow is on the field.
I agree.
And so doing that, keeping ETN involved, heavily involved in the offense this time, and in doing so with that allows Trevor Lawrence in. Let's run the RPO, and he can pull it back and then go because Clemson's defense better than LSU's. They've put up the numbers all season long. As Adam said, LSU's defense has been very good the last number of games. Have been good when they've had to be. But at the times during the season, you could move the ball and you can put some points on them. And
they're allowing almost 100 yards more per game and double the amount of points that Clemson's allowing. Clemson is going to have to score points in this one, and they really have to, like you mentioned, stay on the field, keep LSU's high-powered offense off the field, averaging almost 49 points per game. Don't give them enough possessions to score 49 points per game, and it really gives you an advantage.
And it's interesting because both teams like to play the spread, the high octane, up tempo, chunk plays. Drives don't take that long because they're going 4 plays, 94 yards to put it in the end zone. Shout out Buckeye fans for that one. But I think slow it down just a little bit. If you're running at 100 miles an hour, maybe dial it back down to like 80 or 85 miles per hour as far as the pacing for this game.
Yeah.
You can still run your no huddle stuff. Maybe take an extra 5-10 seconds off the play clock. And that adds up over time, and it keeps Joe Burrow off the field. So I think that's a big thing for Clemson. Get Travis Etienne involved in this game and see if you can force just 2 turnovers for LSU. I think would be the difference.
Yeah.
On the other side, here's LSU, and they've been, as dominant of a team as we've seen in a long, long time.
Quite possibly the best team in recent history in college football.
Clemson's got a case there too, but
they do. Because this season's team, LSU's team.
Well, it's the level of competition which they've played compared to Clemson. I think it's the big thing.
SEC, because it means more,
Don't go there.
I know. I'm just sorry. Get you fired up.
I'm an SEC alum.
I know.
And it oh God, that's so stuff's so stupid. Sorry.
They're showing the commercials again.
Yeah, I know. Of course they are. So for me, LSU wins the national championship if Joe Burrow is sacked less than 3 times. As we talked about, he's been sacked 29 times in a year. So basically, he's going down twice a game.
Yeah,
roughly. And the other thing I talked about just before with Travis Etienne not only running the ball but catching the ball, same thing for LSU. I think if Clyde Edwards-Helaire has at least a minimum of 5 receptions in this game, I think it's going to be a winning day for LSU. Now he's had until last game against Oklahoma when he was hurt and they didn't need him anyway. He barely played. He had 38 catches the previous 6 games, so he's ran that 6 to 6.5 catches per game during that stretch. But I think in this one, if he has 5 catches, they love to run the screen, swing him out of the backfield, all that kind of stuff, just stretches things out underneath, and then you can throw it deep down the field. 5 catches or more from Edwards-Helaire and 3 or fewer sacks from Joe Burrow, I think LSU takes home the title.
And mine hinges on Joe Burrow, too. I think the key for LSU is to, one, start fast, and that's Joe Burrow. 38 touchdowns in the first half of games. Now, they haven't had to play a whole lot of second half of games, but he only has 15 in the second half.
Think about that, though. 38 touchdowns
in the first half. Only 15 in the second half of the season. But the reason this is key, and again, it goes back to Clemson's been here before, and they've played fourth quarter in games. LSU is going to have to score points early because I don't know if they can play from behind with a Clemson defense that's as good as they are. They got to jump out to an early lead, or at least score points. Or they may not be an early lead, but they got to score points early. I don't think you can give Clemson a 2-touchdown cushion in this game and be able to come back with the way Clemson's defense plays, and they're going to be able to dial it up. And then also the other key, and this is shocking, but this is the one part where Joe Burrow struggles, and I say struggles jokingly, but putting him in third and long situations makes Joe Burrow's completion percentage drop over 10 points. And I know you're going from it's almost 78 to 66, but putting Joe Burrow in 3rd and 6+ situations, which again goes back to Brent Venables' defense, being able to get in the backfield and disrupt Joe Burrow and put him into situations where he has to start to force the ball a little bit more is really going to be the key for them. So for LSU, score some points early because you don't want to get into a 2-touchdown deficit with Clemson's defense, and then also stay in 3rd and manageable. You got to get 3 or 4 yards on 1st and 2nd down. Stay in 3rd and manageable. Keep your offense on the field, like you mentioned. You cannot give extra possessions away by giving up turnovers. LSU has to stay on the field, and I think just keeping Joe Burrow in a rhythm is really their biggest key to winning this game.
You talked about the fact that Clemson has had to play more into the fourth quarter than LSU has for a lot of the season, and Clemson's had their fair share of blowouts, don't get me wrong. But do you think that possibly factored into the semifinal game as it went down towards the end of the game, that Clemson flat out played better than Ohio State? Because Ohio State had so many blowouts during the season that you did not have the 4 quarters of experience.
4 plays, 90+ yard drive like that. That was Clemson's advantage. They knew how to play in a situation like that. And they have for the last 2 seasons. Again, Trevor Lawrence being in the situation before, hasn't lost a game since his senior year in high school. Like, that's an advantage. And as much as you want to say, oh, well, LSU playing the SEC and blowing people out, that's an advantage. Well, Clemson doesn't play anybody. Well, they've been in a few close games, and they beat Ohio State, who a lot of people thought should have been the number 1 seed. They ended up beating Ohio State. I think that plays to their advantage, and I think their ability to have to win games in the fourth quarter this season, which LSU hasn't had to do, really, really benefits them in the long run. And again, you look at Dabo Swinney and the experience of being to national championships before, and this is at Orgeron's first trip to the national championship. I think those things really are going to come into play. This one is a tough pick, and if you look at experts, a lot of people are split on this one. Teams have people have Clemson winning this one. ESPN's matchup predictor actually has predicting that Clemson will win the game. Clemson is getting 6 points in this game.
I'm surprised the number is that high.
I am too, but I think people are giving a lot of credit to LSU and the schedule and the SEC schedule and the old argument of Clemson hasn't played anybody.
I think also factors in the way LSU dismantled Oklahoma and Clemson won a tight one against Ohio State.
It didn't matter who that number 4 team is.
I know, I agree.
I'm just saying
Utah
or Oregon or Baylor. It wouldn't matter. But
just the visuals of watching LSU destroy Oklahoma. Like you said,
I agree.
It wouldn't have mattered who the 4 seed was. They were getting taken behind the woodshed in that one. And Clemson having to come from behind, and a lot of people believe should not have beaten Ohio State.
Well, too bad. That's why you play the game.
No, I get it. I'm with you. No, I get it. But it's the aesthetics there. The number right now is LSU's favored by 6.
Yeah. I would be interested. I didn't pay close enough attention. I would be interested to what that opened at to see where the betting was.
I don't think it's moved very much.
Okay. I was just wondering if LSU maybe started out as a little bit higher just because the optics of the original semifinal. But I'm for a national championship game. I'm surprised at 6. I think it's a little high. I thought it would be a little closer to 3.
Are you surprised the over/under right now is sitting at around 70?
Yeah, that I think I want to say that seems low because of the high-powered offenses that these teams have, and I think LSU's ability to score points. I think Clemson's going to have to match to play with them. I think it sounds low. That's 35 points apiece. It sounds low, but with the style of defense that Clemson plays, and even LSU's defense the last 3 weeks, again, holding the last 3 teams they played to their lowest point totals of the season, I could see the under hitting in this one too. Like this may not be a race to 40. This really could be, like we mentioned with the FCS championship. This could be a 28-20, 24-17 type game.
Maybe a race to 30.
It may be a race to 30 instead of a race to 40. So
gotcha.
It'll be interesting. Anyways. To the actual picks, I actually have LSU in this one. I didn't want to do it, and part
You've
of me
been torn on this.
I did, and I didn't pick it till this morning. And I texted Jason last night. He and I were chatting about the show today, and I said, I picked all my NFL games because he does the graphics and stuff. And I picked all the home teams for the NFL games. I gave him the kicker of the week, and he says, "Well, who you got for the national championship?" And I said, "I don't know. I really didn't," and I had to think on it, and. Neither result shocks me in this one, but Clemson wins doesn't shock me. If they win their 30th game in a row, would not surprise me. But I think LSU's ability to go out and score a bunch of points and just to jump out and the explosiveness of their offense really, like I mentioned, keeping Joe Burrow the most efficient passer I think I've seen in college football. The spots that he can put the ball are shocking. Like he can make throws that no one else in college football can make. And to be honest with you, there's probably guys in the NFL who can't make the same throws he can against elite competition, against cornerbacks and safeties who are going to be first-round draft picks. He can put the balls in spots that I have not seen other guys be able to do. 78% completion percentage, and he's putting it on a rope into a window about the size of a football. Like he's putting it in a window where only a football can fit. He's like a carnival game throwing it through that little hole. That's what Joe Burrow can do. I'd love to see him go to Chuck E. Cheese and win a bunch of tickets on that game that my son always wants to play and can't ever get it into any of them. I'd love to see Joe Burrow do it because he fits the balls into spots that I haven't seen before. I think that ability and what he can do really makes a difference in this game. I think LSU wins. I think Joe Burrow's the MVP. I think he's a Heisman Trophy winner, national championship MVP, and in turn turns him into the number one pick in the draft with the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll talk about the draft here after the season's over. But I think that just the kid's something special. The LSU team is something special, and it wouldn't shock me if Clemson wins. I like LSU in this matchup. Just all those things surrounding Joe Burrow and their team and what they can do really makes it hard to pick against them at this point.
He said Joe Burrow is probably having, I think he's having the greatest season we've ever seen from a quarterback in the history of college football.
It's nasty.
He said 78% completion percentage, over 5,000 yards,
5,200 yards, 55 touchdowns,
55
only
touchdowns.
6 interceptions. Like,
and the SEC record before it was 45.
I mean, honestly, 55 touchdowns is a career for a lot of quarterbacks, and he's doing it in one season. It's stunning, just the efficiency that he operates under. And again, he's throwing to probably the best wide receiver crew in the country. Sorry, Kevin, if you're listening. Sorry to my brother-in-law who insists that
fight on, fight on,
that USC
fight on. You got blown out by Iowa in a bowl game in San Diego
and a home game for you. But anyway, just unlike anything that I've seen, and I haven't been around forever, but as far as college quarterback efficiency, Joe Burrow is the measuring stick from here on out. And I mean, his numbers are going to sit around for a while, particularly at LSU, but just, I don't know that completion college football. I don't know if anybody else gets back to 78%.
I don't know that completion percentage number ever gets broken. No, as far as number of attempts go, because you have a certain number of attempts.
Yeah. Like, of course, a guy who throws it 10 times per game, like you might see a Navy or an Air Force quarterback who goes 3 for 4, come close to it. But as far as that many attempts and that many yards, I don't think you're ever going to see a quarterback that throws it this much complete almost 80% of his passes.
Yeah, I think LSU wins here. I have LSU winning 34-31. I think if anything else, they just feel like the team of destiny. That they've been so.
It feels like everything should happen for them.
Yeah.
And we're discounting Clemson, who hasn't lost in 28 straight games.
No,
but like. Something about LSU being the team that is supposed to win this, I agree. It feels like a team of destiny.
No, I think so too, and I think it's just enough. I said this should be such a close one, and LSU, enjoy this while you got it, because you're never going to have a quarterback like this ever again.
The drop off between him and whoever, it doesn't matter.
Next year, Clemson will be by far the number one team in America, because you have the number one pick coming back, because Tua has announced he's gone to the NFL. So Alabama will have to decide who their next quarterback is, or it's Mac Jones. They've got a 5-star coming in, or Tua's little brother. But in either case, Trevor Lawrence is back. Clemson will be the undisputed number one team in the country next season. They can go out and win the title next year. I think they'll be the overwhelming favorites next year to win, the title.
I think Ohio State probably is going to.
They'll be right there.
They'll be right there because their core is coming back. Justin Fields, only a sophomore.
J.K. Dobbins is gone.
J.K. Dobbins is leaving, but Justin Fields, the efficiency he had this year, I think they're going to be early contenders as well. But don't be surprised if they're 1-2, and it could be either way. But I think Clemson probably number one overall team going into next season.
Yeah, just watch and appreciate Joe Burrow for the final time in college.
Yeah, especially if he ends up here in Cincinnati, because it ain't going to look pretty here in Cincinnati.
Not in
the immediate future, at least.
Not so much. So there you go. We're both taking LSU to win the national championship here. And before we get out of here. Here's a last check of the bowl standings before the picks here, and like I said, Adam's been on it all bowl season long. You can see it right there. He's 28-12. He's in the 96th percentile in ESPN's
and
bowl pick. And
shockingly enough, I screwed this up. I picked Ohio on the show, but for some reason,
clicked the wrong thing?
I clicked Nevada on the thing, so I actually could have been 29-11. And I picked my Chippewas. Sad to say, I picked my Chippewas. That didn't work out well for me. Thought I was going to have a sweater with the Max and the Red Hawks there, but their center decided to snap it between the quarterback's leg on 4th and inches. But it worked out well for me. I've been trying to pick a little more logically this year and less against. But some of these were just obvious. Like the people that were giving Michigan a chance against Alabama, you bums. Alabama sat 9 starters and still handled Michigan. Well done. But this year's bowl season was pretty good for me. Now, don't ask me what happens when we get to March Madness, because I'm not very good at that either.
Well, we don't pick that here.
Yeah, we don't pick it here on Fumblegate. But we get the divisional weekend. We got 2 national championship games. By the way, don't sleep on the FCS national championship game Saturday at noon. Wake up early for some of you. I'll already be awake. I'll probably already have a beer cracked.
Pre-game.
I'll be pre-gaming, but coaching a big 6-7-year-old basketball game at 11. So I'll come home immediately after that from the Y. I'll crack a beer and we'll start watching the FCS national championship game. But
you're going to pre-game for the basketball game?
No, I'm coaching. I can't. I have to be in charge of 6 and 7-year-olds. By the way, I probably built an all-star squad. The YMCA built me an all-star squad. I didn't do anything for it.
What's your best offensive play?
We don't have. There's 6 and 7-year-olds. Remember to dribble the ball and try and get rebounds. That's all it is. Like, just don't run with the ball. Try and get a rebound. Some of it is painful. But it's fun. It's fun to watch.
You don't scout college games and steal plays?
No, I don't. 6 and 7-year-olds, again, remember to dribble the ball. It's the YMCA. If you sign up, you're on the team. There is no tryout period. It's a randomly assigned 10 children. Luckily for me, my son, about half the team goes to his elementary school, so he knows some of the boys. My oldest is on the team with. There's a set of brothers that my oldest plays with, the older one, and my son Everett plays with the younger one. So that's kind of fun. Starting to learn families as you get older. You start to learn families with kids that are your age and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I like coaching the kids. I'd like to get a break at some point in time. I think I've coached I pretty much coach year round at this point, between actual getting paid for football. Now it's not much, but between getting my dime per day for coaching high school football and then coaching every rec league sport that my children play. I think my son's basketball team, this is the first time I haven't coached my son in his sport. He's on somebody else's basketball team for the first time ever. But in turn, I traded that for my 6-year-old. I'm coaching his teams instead of coaching my 8-year-old's teams.
What kind of defense do you like to run?
It's the wristband method. So each kid gets a colored wristband. So it's man-to-man, but you got to follow the same guy that you always guard. They're just teaching them some fundamentals. You can't.
You can't play 2-3 zone?
I would play zone. That's, by the way, for all of you out there, if you're listening, if you want to win rec league basketball when you get a little bit older, play zone defense. That's how you win. Get some shooters, get some knockdown shooters, and play zone defense. That's all you have to do to win rec league basketball leagues. That's all you got to do. Play zone. Like, you go out and you play a 2-3 zone. Now, it helps that my fat ass is in the middle, but, like, get a rebound and outlet. That's all.
You're going to hate Elder Boy. Hopes your kids grow up to be kickers.
False. Guess what? My kids don't play soccer, and they will never kick a football for fun, ever. None of my kids want to be kickers because no one grows up wanting to be a kicker.
Wait, are you going to let your sons play football?
Yeah, eventually. When they get older, that's a whole. We could do a whole show on why my kids will not play football until they get to about middle school.
I'm fine with the aging. I just don't know if you're going to let them play at all.
They will play football eventually.
Okay.
To be honest with you, they're not interested in it right now. Like, they talk about football and they love to be around my high school kids. They
follow the chips.
They watch football, but they're not interested in playing football. They'd rather just tackle each other on the floor in the living room. But yeah, they'll eventually play football. I think.
Is that the point where your daughter comes in and just kicks both their asses?
She's already got to the point where she can make him cry. She swings for the fences. When she's throwing punches, she swings for the fences.
She's like a couple years younger than your boys, isn't she?
Yeah, she's 4 years younger than my oldest, 2 years younger than my middle son.
She runs the house.
She throws haymakers. When she gets angry, she starts throwing haymakers. But and one last thing I wanted to bring up real quick. How about Mike Vrabel out Belichicking Belichick at the end of that game?
The punting thing.
The punting thing. A minute 46 off the clock.
Yeah. So if you didn't see this is genius.
It's amazing, and it made the biggest difference at the end of the game because Tom Brady had no time left on the clock.
Tennessee was punting the ball.
It was amazing.
Tennessee was punting the ball with
a running clock.
With a running clock around like 6.5 minutes to go. They're around midfield, so they're going to punt it. So Vrabel says, "Let's take the delay of game.
Yep.
Back up 5 yards, punt it." Well, it's an offensive penalty, so you back up 5 yards. Okay. Clock starts rolling again.
You can't. So a couple things that happen with it. One, inside of 5 minutes, the clock stops for any penalty. So it's outside of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So Mike Vrabel knows that.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get it down to 5 minutes, and you cannot take 2 delay of game penalties in a row because then it becomes a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It becomes a 15-yard penalty, and then the clock stops on that penalty. So he takes a delay of game, followed by a false start, and then by the way. The Patriots give him a reprieve, and they jump off sides on the third one.
He does it again.
So 3 penalties in a row. They get 3 penalties in a row, wastes a minute 46 o'clock, gets the time under 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, it made a difference because Tom Brady, first time they had the ball when he threw the pick six, I believe there was 33 seconds left when he got the ball for that one.
Yeah.
And then the kickoff, they had 9 seconds left for the kickoff.
You see Belichick on the sideline.
Oh, he was so mad. Oh, he was so mad.
Because the student did to the teacher what the teacher started doing to everybody else.
The teacher, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious.
He didn't like it that somebody turned around and did it to him, and
by
it
the
was
way,
Mike Vrabel.
This is kind of shocking that, and you posted this in the chat, I believe that Mike Vrabel is the only head coach under Bill Belichick to have a winning record. All the other guys who have coached or played under Bill Belichick do not have winning records.
Yeah, they don't turn
Mike Vrabel is the only one.
They don't turn out so well once they leave Belichick.
Mike Vrabel's got something going down there in Tennessee, and we'll see what they do with Ryan Tannehill, who's on the 1-year lease right now. Obviously,
they say they want to keep him,
and they're going to have to pay a little bit of money for him. Like you mentioned, it might be $30 million, but they're going to want to keep him. Marcus Mariota appears to be done there, but Mike Vrabel's got something going on, and seeing him get Bill Belichick absolutely irate on the sideline.
That's one of the greatest troll moves ever.
For playing by the rules too. Like it was just bleed the clock, and again, the fact that it made such a big difference at the end of that game.
How many times have you seen people slobber all over the Patriots because they found some loophole in the rule book
and take advantage of the situation,
and that's fair game.
100%.
But now seeing Bill Belichick get just irate that someone did it to him,
essentially not getting an opportunity because Mike Vrabel played you. Like it is hilarious. Man, I loved it.
The cojones on Belichick to get that upset about somebody doing it to him when he's done it to the rest.
The post-game handshake was not cordial.
No, of course not. It never is.
Not usually is it.
It never is because
Belichick.
I'm sorry, it never is, and I'm sorry to say it. Bill Belichick's an asshole. But because
well, it turns out
how dare you leave me?
Most college and pro football coaches are assholes, but not a cordial handshake after the game. But credit to Mike Vrabel.
Well, no, especially when you beat him.
Yeah, Dan said it in the chat. Vrabel's the ultimate troll. He really was. That was the ultimate troll I've seen against Bill Belichick. That is the ultimate troll against Bill Belichick.
Belichick does what certain like college basketball coaches will do, and I won't say who. People know who they are. If they beat you, they'll want to shake your hand. They'll want to talk to you, talk about a great game. You guys fought really hard.
Nice try.
Exactly. But when you beat them, you get the blow by.
Yeah.
And that's it. All right. So here's a recap of all the picks we have starting on Saturday noontime with the FCS championship. James Madison and North Dakota State. Sit down and watch this. It's going to be a great football game. And both of us have North Dakota State winning their 8th title in the last 9 years. Think about that. The 8th championship in 9 years for the Bison.
Nothing rivals that. Like maybe the UCLA teams back in the day. Like nothing rivals that. That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
As far as major college sports, and I know there's some swimming program that won like 17 straight, but as far as like the sports, and no offense to swimming and whatever, but the sports that people watch, save UCLA basketball back in the 60s, or was it 50s?
Yeah, 60s.
60s. Nothing rivals that.
Absolutely.
That's unbelievable.
So there you go. We both at North Dakota State. Let's move on to the NFL games since they start on Saturday. We are split on the pick for Minnesota and San Fran. Adam's sticking with the top seed 49ers. I say
all home teams.
I say Minnesota goes into San Fran and pulls the upset there. The rest of the way, we're in agreement. Baltimore holds serve at home against Tennessee, which should be a low-scoring slugfest because of the way both teams like to play, run the ball defense. But Lamar Jackson probably just too much. Houston and Kansas City, we're both of the mind this will be the largest margin as far as score goes in the divisional round, with both of us having Kansas City winning comfortably and Deshaun Watson probably taking a pounding and probably sitting in his own ice tub in the plane on the way back home to Houston. And then finally, Green Bay should have just enough of an advantage, especially in Lambeau, to go over the top of Seattle. And then finally, of course, we finish up on Monday with the College Football National Championship. LSU, it just feels like they're the team of destiny. Both Adam and I have them beating Clemson. Not to take anything away from Clemson and what they've done, not only this year, but the last 3 years, really.
I mean, quite the impressive run, and the argument could have been made that maybe Alabama was the cream of the crop in college football, but
Clemson has become the new dynasty.
Clemson has become the dynasty, but trying to win 3 of their last 4, but like you mentioned, I think LSU just feels like the team of destiny this year, and we're going with the popular pick.
This is Joe Burrow's swan song in college football, and it looks like I think he's going to go out with a ring. So. Sit back. It should be a great weekend of football, and we're glad to get ahead of it here each and every Thursday morning here on Fumblegate. We're so glad you were here with us today. Thank you to those who were involved in watching and chatting along with us here today. We certainly appreciate all of your support.
Invite your friends.
Absolutely.
It's fun.
Enjoy it. Spread the word in. Dan thinks Adam's boys are going to go be kickers.
Probably not.
So that's fun. Jimmy James, we're looking for a masseuse for Tommy.
Kirk Cousins, he's a Sparty guy, so he's a big fan.
You like that? I like that. So we'll see if we get another one of those clips at the end of the San Francisco game. I think
we do.
I think it's possibly. And if they win, keep doing it because now it's a thing and it's superstition. You can't change it.
Well, yeah, you got to keep rolling with it.
Absolutely. So that'll wrap it up this week for Fumblegate. We'll be back next Thursday to start talking about the conference championship games and maybe kind of wrap up any other college football news that comes down the pike, talk about the national championship game, maybe some coaching changes, coaching hires, coaching fires, so on and so forth there. So we'll look forward to joining you here next Thursday on the Fumblegate podcast on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on the Twitter. I am at Jason Grefer. Follow the show at Fumblegate. Mr. Kieft.
At Fumblegate Fatty.
Facebook.com/Fumblegate. Throw us a like, throw us a follow on all of those. And we certainly appreciate all your support on the social media as well. Here on YouTube, give us a subscribe, ring the little bell. And so every time we go live, you're notified instantly on your mobile device, via email, whichever you prefer. And that way you can stay with us each and every week here on Fumblegate. We'll see you next week.